100 poets, one poem each. Number 7. The poem Hara, furisake mireba, Kasuga naru, Mikasa no yama ni, ideshi tsuki kamo. Looking out across the vast plain of heaven, I wonder, is that the same moon that rose over Mount Mikasa in Kasuga? 31 syllables, the 7th poem. In the anthology of 100, this poem was written in China. It is the only poem in the 100 poets that was not written in Japan. The poet was standing on the coast of China, looking up at the moon and thinking of a mountain he had not seen in more than 30 years. The poet, his name was Abe no Nakamaro, born around 698. He left Japan as a young man of 19. He never came back. He went as a student of the Tang dynasty, the great empire of China, at the height of its brilliance. The Tang was the most sophisticated civilization of its age. Its capital, Chang'an, was the largest city in the world. Its poetry, its art, its philosophy, its system of government, all of it was what Japan was sending its best young people to learn. Nakamaro was one of those young people, selected, exceptional, sent across the ocean with the expectation that he would return, carrying what he had learned. He was 19 years old when he left. The mountain he would later write about, Mikasa in Kasuga, was the mountain he saw from his home, the mountain that rose above, the landscape of his childhood. The Tang dynasty. He arrived in Chang'an. He studied. He passed the examination, the Chinese civil examination, the Keiju, the test that determined who would govern the empire. One of the most difficult examinations in human history, taken in Chinese, requiring mastery of the entire canon of Chinese literature. Nakamaro passed it. A Japanese student in a foreign capital passed the examination that the Chinese themselves found brutally difficult. He became an official of the Tang court. He rose through the ranks. He served Emperor Xuanzong, the brilliant, tragic emperor. At the height and decline of Tang glory, he became known as Chao Heng, his Chinese name, the name by which the Tang court knew him, by which the great poets of the age knew him. Li Bai and Wang Wei. This is the part of Nakamaro's story that is almost impossible to believe, and is completely true. He was friends with Li Bai. Li Bai, the greatest poet of the Tang dynasty, perhaps the greatest poet in the history of Chinese literature, the man whose poems are still memorized by Chinese schoolchildren. 13 centuries later, he was also friends with Wang Wei, another of the great Tang poets, the poet, painter, and musician who embodied the refined ideal of the Tang aristocrat. A Japanese official at the Tang court was friends with both of them. He drank with them. He wrote with them. He exchanged poems with them. Wang Wei wrote a poem for Nakamaro when the time came to leave, a farewell poem wishing him safe passage across the ocean, expressing the friendship that had grown across the languages and the years. The farewell. He had been trying to go home for a long time, more than 30 years, of requesting permission, of being told to wait, of being too valuable to release. Finally, in 753, when Nakamaro was in his 50s, the permission came. He could go home. He could cross the ocean that he had crossed when he was 19. He could see the mountain again. A banquet was held on the coast at the port of departure, a farewell gathering of the friends and colleagues he had made in 3 decades. At the Tang court, Li Bai was not there, but the friends were there, and the moon was there, the moon above the coast of China, and Nakamaro looked up at the moon, and he thought of the mountain, the poem, Amma no hara, the vast plain of heaven, not the small sky above a field, the full expanse, the sky as it is when you look up and feel its size, furisake mireba, looking out and far away, the particular act of looking that reaches beyond what is near, that goes past the immediate, into the distant, looking out across the full sky. Kasuga naru Mikasa no yama ni, in Kasuga, Mount Mikasa, the specific mountain, not a mountain in general. This mountain, the one visible from the place where he grew up, the one that rose above the landscape of his first 19 years, ideshi, tsuki, kamo, is that the moon that rose there? The question that is also a recognition, the wondering that is also a knowing. Is this the same moon? Yes, the same moon. The moon does not change. Even when everything else does. The ship that sank, he did not make it home. The ship left the Chinese coast. The ocean was waiting. The same ocean he had crossed more than 30 years before. A storm came. The ship was driven south, far south, to what is now Vietnam. The passengers survived. Nakamaro survived, but the ship could not continue. They were in the wrong place, too far from Japan, too far from anywhere they could easily reach. The rumor reached China before the truth did. The rumor said the ship had sunk. The rumor said Nakamaro was dead. Li Bai heard the rumor, and Li Bai wrote a poem, a mourning poem, for Chao Heng, the Japanese official, who had been his friend. The poem said, "The bright moon has sunk into the blue sea. Will it ever rise again?" This poem by Li Bai, about the death of his friend, is one of the most famous poems in Chinese literature, and the friend it mourns was still alive, stranded on the coast of Vietnam, waiting to return to China. The return to Chang'an, he went back. There was nothing else to do. Japan was unreachable. The roads home were closed. The man who had spent 30 years trying to go home went back to Chang'an. Li Bai learned he was alive. The mourning poem was premature. The bright moon had not sunk. It had just gone somewhere else. He served out his remaining years. In Chang'an, he rose to the rank of Junior Counselor of State, a high position, a position that confirmed what everyone at the Tang court already knew. that this Japanese man was one of them, fully one of them. He died in 770 in Chang'an, in the city he had come to. When he was 19, he never saw Mount Mikasa again. He never saw Japan again. He died looking at the Chinese sky. The poem that came back, the poem came back, even though he did not. How the poem reached Japan is not entirely clear. The people who were returning on the other ships, someone who heard him recite it at the farewell banquet, someone who wrote it down, someone who carried it across the ocean he could not cross. The poem arrived in Japan. It was included in the Kokinshu, the first imperial anthology, with a note that said, composed in the Tang while looking at the moon. The poem is the only thing that made it back. The poet never did. The same moon. This is what the poem holds. The moon is the same moon that rose over Mikasa, the moon that a boy of 19 saw from his home in Kasuga, the moon that is still rising over that mountain, even now. The moon does not know that the person looking at it is standing on the coast of China. The moon does not know about the 30 years, about the examinations, about Li Bai and Wang Wei, about the ship that sank, about the long way home. That never became the way home. The moon simply rises over Mikasa, over the coast of China, over the vast plain of heaven, the same moon, and the man who could not go home looked up at it and wrote down what he saw and sent it across the ocean instead of himself. Ama no hara, furisake mireba, Kasuga naru, Mikasa no yama ni, ideshi tsuki kamo, the vast plain of heaven, the moon, the mountain, the same moon. He never made it home. The poem did.